There's a darkness inside of me. It followed me here. And it's gonna keep coming for us.
The fifth installment of the Scream franchise introduced a new cast, and now Melissa Barrera, Jasmin Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding, and Jenna Ortega tell people about their strong bond as they return for another round of scares.
I feel like we say it all the time, but it really did feel like a summer camp sort of.
Yeah, we love each other.
Sort of time. And I used to go to summer camp with my brother, and it was nice to have someone to look out for me. And I feel like that's what they do for me every day, is just check in and make sure I'm okay. And
yeah, I feel like we're unusually comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
Probably too much.
Probably to our detriment, that's right.
Do you remember in the last movie where an extra asked us if we were actually sisters, and we both went, yeah.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, that's incredible. We were like, yeah.
Now you have to roll with it.
Yeah, forever.
You might as well get it legally.
Yeah.
The group actually became fans of the beloved slasher films at different points in their lives.
Yeah, I was 26.
There you go.
Really?
The set of our movie, I watched Scream 1 for the first time.
Are you serious?
You never told me your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
Mine was the first Scream, and I guess like in agreement with my father, I really wanted this really scary, violent video game called Dead Space. And he was like, well, I don't think you can even handle movies. So he put on Scream, and he said if I sat through the whole thing, he would buy me Dead Space. And I did it. And I love that game even to this day.
Were you scared?
Oh, horrified. Yeah, but you can't show that. You're going to be like, tough.
Tough.
I wanted to play the video game.
Yeah.
I was also, I was obsessed with horror movies when I was 10, 11 years old. Sleepovers at friends' houses, watching R-rated horror movies was the thing because I wasn't allowed to watch them. So I remember watching Scream along with, the Final Destinations and the I Know What You Did Last Summers. All of those were kind of my first introduction into horror.
Do you guys remember When a Stranger Calls?
Yes.
That was my favorite. That's the one I watched over and over again at sleepovers. I want to do a remake of that.
Yeah. Well, they did one, didn't they?
Yeah. Let's do another remake
Let's
of
do
that.
another one.
Go.
I'd watch
Love
yours.
a franchise,
Yeah.
don't you?
I love a franchise.
The stars have even lost their voices from working on projects that require screaming.
Oh, yeah.
Not on
Not on
these
this
movies.
one,
Yeah.
but
I've lost my voice in other movies,
Last
not in
week?
this one.
This
not
is-
because of the
what
script,
is-
it's because when people get her order wrong.
Yeah.
screaming.
I
What's
can get
worse
really
for the voice? Is it singing or screaming? Because I imagine. Yeah.
screaming.
Really?
But when you have to sing scream, which is what I had to do in this last movie that I shot, it was brutal.
This isn't funny, Amber. I think when I was doing the opening for the last film,
Iconic.
when we did it, I think that I tried to push myself as far as I could go. I don't lose my voice often because I think I scream so much, but that was probably, I went home and my voice was a little raspier that day.
Wow.
The latest Scream film marks the first time without Neve Campbell, but the cast found themselves getting closer to returning star Courteney Cox.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
weird not having her there, obviously. We definitely miss her, but
Yeah.
I got a really sweet text from her right before we started shooting, which felt like a blessing, kind of. And,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Yeah, and as much as we missed her, it was really nice to have more time with Courtney,
Yeah.
And to get to know her a little bit more intimately and personally, and then for her to have her moment in the film was pretty cool.
What is this place?
A shrine.
I feel like the difference between the fifth and the sixth was her understanding of how fun we can be and how inclusive we are. Because I don't think I ever spent time with her on Scream 5, but Scream 6 we had dinner parties. We had
Yeah.
Similar.
it was like a really nice way of breaking down the wall that maybe comes from meeting a new cast of people.
And it's genuine.
Yeah.
Really and
She
truly.
checks on us. She checks on me every month to ask how things are going in my personal life, see if
There
I
you
need
go.
advice.
She doesn't check in on
Yeah,
me, but
she goes out of her way.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say.
She's one of the sweetest people in the business. And she's Courteney Cox, and sometimes they're you know how they say never meet your heroes? And she is the exception to that rule. She's even better than you would think. She's more lovable and funnier and more generous.
Scream 6 moves the grisly murders to New York City, and the new setting became a welcome addition.
I feel like New York, as a LA kid, was always seen as the human wet market of the United States. Just this meat packing people on top of each other. So you throw in a serial killer into the mix, and it's the anxiety that comes from so many bodies in one place at once is like only heightened by having murder, I guess.
I love the city. I would love to move here. I'd love to be around here. But I also feel like I go around my day-to-day life and I could be walking through a grocery store or walking down the street and think, man, I wonder how many people around me are serial killers or killed someone or something like that. And in this film, it's an actual guess.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting for me.
I loved having it set in New York. I think it was a big statement to move the franchise across the country for the first time because it had been pretty West Coast. And I think it says a lot about how like brutal Ghostface is, that it would follow them all the way to the big city, but also that they're actually trying to run away from something. You know, it's like horror movies are the kind of movies that you always talk to the screen. You're like, why are you being so dumb?
Right.
Why are you going in that door? Why are you going down the stairs? You know, like that kind of thing. And for me, it's always like, if you're so scared of Ghostface, like, why don't you just go somewhere else?
Right.
And these people, like, these characters are like, we're getting out of here.
Yeah.
Like, actually. And the fact that they can't get away from Ghostface, I think just says a lot about how scary this movie is.
For more with the cast of Scream 6, pick up this week's issue of People on newsstands Friday.